Hey there. Thanks for being here. It honestly means a lot. And if you decide to subscribe, it would seriously make my day. Let's get into it. I was chatting with her, recounting this wild story from work. Something absurd, a client had said. She laughed, but not at what I said. Her reaction was for something on her phone. And right then, something shifted in me. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, wasn't trying to escalate. I just picked up my plate, reheated my dinner, and ate at the table, alone. Each bite dull and tight with silent frustration. As I started clearing the dishes, she said it, like it was nothing. Offhand, almost proud. "You know what we should do?" she said. I glanced over. "Do what?" She gave me that look, the smug little smile she wears when she thinks she's dropping wisdom. "We should take a break, not physically, just emotionally, like roommates. No texting, no updates, just complete freedom." At first, I thought she was messing with me, but her eyes told a different story. This had been rehearsed. I didn't argue. What was the point? I nodded. All right, some space. Then, while she went back to scrolling, I stepped into the bedroom, grabbed a duffel, and packed a few things. No slamming doors, no note, no goodbye. I just left. I landed at Marcus's place, my roommate from back in college. He didn't pry, just handed me a beer, turned on the game, and let the silence do its work. I didn't realize how badly I needed it. But let me be clear, I didn't walk out just because she asked for space. I left because the space had already been there. For a while. The late nights, the distance in her eyes, the way she clutched her phone like it held top-secret intel. I'd been ignoring it, but the truth had been whispering to me for months. Something had changed, not just a little, completely. That night I silenced my phone, not to make a point, not to play games. I just didn't want to pretend anymore. Pretend like we were okay when everything inside me said otherwise. By morning, I had 3 missed calls. By lunchtime, 8. By evening, 16. Her messages started light. "Hey, are you okay?" Then edged toward annoyance. "You're being immature. We need to talk." Then came panic. "Please, just call me. I'm really scared." Still, I didn't answer. Not to punish her. That wasn't the goal. I needed to see what she'd do when she wasn't writing the script. That night, sitting on Marcus's couch, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I reflected. On her. On us. On who I had become. And the truth I found wasn't easy to swallow. We used to be solid. Really solid. There was chemistry, laughter, trust, touches that meant something. But lately, it felt fake. She was staying late more often. Her texts got shorter. Her affection felt like it came from a checklist. And every time her phone buzzed, she'd tilt the screen away like I was some kind of intruder. Little signs added up, a scent I didn't recognize on her hoodie. A new name dropped casually. "Sheldon from marketing," she said once. "He's hilarious." Sure, hilarious. I wasn't clueless, just in denial. But that Friday, I finally stopped avoiding the obvious. I pulled up an old email I hadn't touched in years, created a new profile, and started digging. What I uncovered wasn't the whole story, but it was enough to turn my stomach. Sleep was out of the question. My body was exhausted, but my mind was racing. Every lie, every weird moment, every excuse she'd given played like a film I hadn't realized I was cast in. At 2:13 a.m., I pulled out my laptop. I still remembered the login to our old shared cloud folder. It used to be our archive. Vacations, date nights, lazy Sundays. She hadn't uploaded anything in over a year, but the account was still linked to her Google Photos backup. And there she was. Not at work, not home. In some bar I didn't recognize, cozied up next to a guy I didn't know. Her arm around his shoulder, lips near his ear. Another shot showed him holding her by the waist. The date stamp? 2 Thursdays ago. The same night she said she was too exhausted to come home and was staying at a coworker's place. I felt sick. I kept scrolling. It got worse. Hotel mirrors, selfies, silhouettes of someone else in the background, snippets of messages I'd missed. She thought she'd erased everything but didn't do a good enough job. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. How had I been this blind? By sunrise, she'd called 22 times. One voicemail stopped me cold. Her voice broke. Jason, please, just tell me you're okay. This isn't funny anymore. I'm scared. Jason, that's me. A regular guy who stayed loyal, paid the bills, and never saw it coming. But I didn't want a meltdown. Didn't want a dramatic shouting match or crocodile tears. I wanted something quieter, sharper, something that would stay with her. So I started planning. I reached out to Aaron, a friend in corporate security who owed me. Asked him to track some locations. I wasn't chasing theories. I wanted confirmation. Aaron delivered 3 addresses, 5 nights, same guy. His name, Chad Whitmore. Of course it was Chad. Expensive cologne, plastic smile, the kind of guy who brags about being a visionary leader in his bio. Honestly, she downgraded, but that didn't make it hurt any less. No crying, no yelling, no punching drywall. I just switched off. Saturday rolled around. I finally texted her. 2 words, doing great. She responded instantly. Where are you? I didn't reply, just turned the phone off again. But I wasn't finished. Sunday afternoon, I drove back to the apartment, parked a block away, lights on, her car out front. Good. I reached into the glove box and pulled out a USB stick. A tiny label read, Proof. I walked up to the door and knocked. She answered fast, hair a mess, eyes red, no makeup. Jason, she breathed, reaching for my arm. Where have you been? I've been losing it. I didn't say anything, just handed her the flash drive. She looked at it, puzzled. What's this? You asked for emotional space, I said quietly. Use it to figure out who you actually are. Then I turned around and walked away. I could feel her eyes burning into my back as I walked away, heavy with realization. But she didn't follow, didn't shout after me. She stayed rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the truth that had finally sunk in. Deep down, she understood. She knew that I knew. And that shook her more than anything I could have said. I didn't go far. Just drove until I found a quiet little park, turned off the engine, cracked the window, and let the early evening air drift in. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually breathe. Almost an hour passed before my phone buzzed to life. Jason, what is this? Where did you find it? We need to talk. Please, just don't do anything rash. It's not what it looks like. I stared at the screen, reading each message as they grew more frantic. But I already knew exactly what it was. The USB drive had everything. Screenshots from her cloud storage, GPS records from Aaron's phone, chat logs she forgot to close on our shared desktop, WhatsApp conversations, photos, videos, hotel booking confirmations. She never expected it. She always thought I was too easygoing to dig deeper. The guy who clipped the hedges, remembered every anniversary, never raised his voice. And that was all true. But what she forgot, what she underestimated, is that I don't just fade quietly into the background. By the time Monday rolled around, she'd called over 30 times, left a dozen voicemails, each swinging wildly between calm denial and full-blown panic. I didn't answer a single one. I was already moving on to the next phase. I reached out to Melanie, her boss. I knew it was a bold move. Back when things were still good between Emily and me, we'd attend company mixers together. That's where I first met Melanie, always professional, always poised. Now, I needed her attention in a different way. I sent her a short, composed email. No threats, no accusations, just this. I believe someone on your team may be violating company policy. I'm sharing this confidentially because I think you should be informed. Please review the attached files. I never mentioned Emily by name. I didn't have to. The photos of her with Chad Whitmore at that company retreat spoke louder than anything I could have written. By lunchtime, Melanie called me. Jason, I had absolutely no idea. This is completely out of line. Thank you for bringing it to me. I didn't pry. Didn't ask what actions they'd take. I didn't need to. A company like that doesn't take risks when it comes to internal scandals, especially not involving 2 people on the same project. Just like that, Emily's polished, high-flying career began to unravel. The next day, she was knocking on Marcus's apartment door. I checked through the peephole before opening. There she stood, her hair a tangled mess, eyes swollen from crying, hands clutching her purse like it might anchor her to the ground. Jason, she murmured as I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. Can we talk? I made a huge mistake, she said quickly. I know I did, but it wasn't serious. It was just a stupid phase. I ended it weeks ago. I kept my voice steady. You don't get to explain anymore. She looked stunned. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Exactly, I said. You assumed I'd stick around, that I'd take the hit, that I'd keep being the dependable guy who waits while you figure things out. Her tears came silently, but I didn't reach out. I couldn't stop thinking about her face in those photos, the way she smiled at him, how alive she looked, like I wasn't even in the picture. You didn't just wreck our marriage, I told her. You destroyed the respect I had for you, and that's something you can't rebuild. She reached for me. I stepped away. I've already filed, I said flatly. You'll be served by week's end. She stood there, motionless, as if my words had knocked the breath from her lungs. But what about everything we shared? She asked, her voice breaking. I met her gaze. You burned it down the moment you decided what you did wasn't a big deal, she cried. I didn't. I turned and went back inside, closed the door behind me. That night, 30 more messages came in. One said she'd turned in her resignation before HR could terminate her. Another mentioned that Chad's wife had found out and was filing for divorce too. Karma always finds the right moment, but I wasn't done. My revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was focused, clinical, and it had only just begun. By Thursday, I stood in front of what used to be our shared apartment, now hers alone. The lease had always been in her name. I didn't want it. I didn't want to hold on to any piece of a life that had become so easy for her to betray. There was one last thing I needed to do, for my own closure. I knocked. She answered barefoot, wearing the hoodie I gave her for our 3rd anniversary, the one she always said made her feel safe. Now it looked like a costume she didn't know how to take off. She was pale, worn thin. The spark in her eyes had gone dim, buried under the fatigue and guilt. Jason, she whispered, you're really going through with this? I nodded, my expression unreadable. Just here to grab the rest of my things. Then I'm gone. She stepped aside without saying another word. The apartment hadn't changed, but it felt colder. Not because of what was missing, but because the warmth, the trust, the meaning that used to fill this place had long since died. I gathered a few boxes, books, my old guitar, a photo album I couldn't bring myself to throw away, while she hovered in the background. I told Chad never to contact me again, she blurted out. Not that it matters now. I kept packing. I resigned yesterday, she added. Melanie called me in, asked if it was true. Once she said your name, I knew it was over. I didn't respond. Do you have any idea what it's like to lose everything in 48 hours? She asked, voice quaking. It's like the floor just disappears under you. That made me pause. I turned to her, met her eyes. I do, I said quietly. I lost everything the moment I realized my wife would rather lie to me than be honest. She looked away, her hands trembling. I never meant for it to spiral like that. They never do, I replied. It starts with a message, then lunch, then a night you swear won't happen again. Before long, you're deceiving the one person who would have taken a bullet for you. I miss you, she whispered. I miss what we had. I glanced around the room one last time. There hasn't been an us for a long time, Emily, I said. You just didn't want to admit it. With that, I picked up the boxes and left. But the story didn't end there. That night, I met up with someone I hadn't seen in almost a year. Rachel, an old friend. I first met her during a stint of volunteer work, before everything with Emily fell apart. We were never anything more than friends, at least not officially. Still, there was always something quiet and unspoken between us. She respected the fact that I was married, never stepping over any lines. I valued that too much to let anything ruin it. But now, those lines didn't exist anymore. We reconnected in a quiet little cafe nestled in the heart of the city. It was one of those cozy spots with hand-drawn chalkboard menus and strands of fairy lights looping across the ceiling, turning every cup of coffee into something intimate and cinematic. When she saw me, she smiled, not with flirtation, but with sincerity, something grounding. "You look changed," she said as she settled into her seat. "Changed in what way?" I asked. "Like someone who finally let go of something heavy," she replied. And just like that, the hours slipped by. We talked about everything, about nothing. I didn't dive into the full story, but she didn't press. Rachel had this uncanny ability to read beneath the surface without needing the details. As we parted ways, she left me with a sentence that echoed in my chest for days. "You're allowed to start again, Jason. Don't let guilt chain you to something that's already done." For the first time since Emily had said, "Let's take some space," I felt something close to free. But then, of course, it got complicated. 1 week after the divorce papers arrived, Emily showed up out of the blue, at my office of all places. Her eyes were swollen, her hands trembled, and she clutched a letter she'd probably rehearsed dozens of times. She poured out a teary apology, saying she'd lost herself, that she panicked because everything felt too safe, too routine, too steady. "I'm not asking for anything," she said, voice cracking. "Not money, not revenge, just a chance to try again. A real one." I stayed quiet, listening. Then I opened my desk drawer and pulled out something I'd kept, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. A printed screenshot of her message to Chad. "He's kind, but boring. He'll never find out." I slid it across the table. "I did find out," I told her, my voice low, "and I'm not boring. I'm done." She stared at the paper, then at me. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked out. That was the real ending. That was when the door finally closed for good. 3 weeks later, I found myself standing inside a small, unassuming apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No ghosts in the hallways, no cryptic texts to decipher. Just bare walls, mismatched chairs, and a bed that didn't carry someone else's scent. I thought healing would take longer. But after being deceived for so long, even silence can feel like peace. Emily made one last attempt, an overly poetic email filled with talk of cosmic energy, soulmates, and spiritual awakenings. She hoped that one day I'd understand her sadness. Understand? She betrayed me, lied to my face, traded our history for a fleeting thrill with someone like Chad, someone who wore too much cologne and thought quoting tech billionaires made him wise. She discarded everything like it was a subscription she could cancel whenever she felt bored. There was nothing left to comprehend. I hadn't intended revenge, but then I saw her social media post, painting herself as the heartbroken victim, spinning stories about betrayal, as if she hadn't been the one to tear everything apart. That was the last straw. If she wanted to pretend, I'd let reality correct the story. I gathered everything, screenshots, texts, receipts, and sent it anonymously to Chad's wife, Monica. Within 2 days, his world collapsed. He lost his home, his job, most of his friends. Monica packed up and left, posting something vague but pointed about starting over. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it because people shouldn't get to leave destruction in their wake and walk away untouched. After that, Emily went silent. Maybe it finally hit her. She hadn't just lost me. She lost the image of herself she had built on my loyalty, the perfect wife, the spotless marriage, the idea that one misstep could be excused. That illusion shattered. And when it did, all that remained was a version of herself she didn't want to face. As for me, I kept moving forward, not to avoid pain, but to rediscover the man I used to be, before I twisted myself into someone else's idea of enough. I went back to therapy. I began seeing Rachel again, but slowly, with care. No grand promises, no dramatic urgency, just long walks, favorite songs, and honest talks that didn't feel like battles. With her, I never once felt the need to check her phone. Because when someone truly sees you, your fears quiet down. I saw Emily once more months later in the cereal aisle of all places. She stood staring at a box we used to buy together. Her face had shifted, not aged, but changed in that way sorrow leaves its mark. She looked up, caught my eye. Her smile was hesitant, unsure. "Jason," she said. I gave a calm nod. "Emily, you're looking well," she offered. I returned the smile. "I am." There was a silence between us, the kind where old memories try to tug at you, but I didn't reach back. "I'm glad," she whispered, and I believed her, just a little. "Take care," I said, and then I walked away. No anger, no longing, no second guessing. Because here's the truth. Most people never say about heartbreak. It doesn't close with perfect resolution. It ends when you truly understand. She wanted distance. She got it. What she didn't see coming was that in that silence, I learned how to breathe on my own again. That's where the story ends. Thanks for staying through it. If this touched something in you, feel free to explore more stories here. Until next time, my friend,